So I want to talk about authenticity, and especially authenticity under pressure, because I think, it's very easy for us to be authentic when we're with our friends and our loved ones and we're at home and we feel safe. But I hope that you are here because you're feeling a need to be authentic, to show up authentically more in the rest of your life. And we do need to negotiate that. Sometimes it's not safe. Sometimes it isn't safe to be authentic, but sometimes it just kind of feels like uncomfortable or you're just not used to it. And I hope that you are like me in that you are working on bringing yourself authentically to as many situations as possible and kind of testing those boundaries of what felt okay and what didn't, because I think it's very easy for us to hide behind our nerves or to hide behind what other people expect of us and not to show up authentically. And there's something that is lost then, not only for them, but also for us. If we're not representing ourselves, if we're not standing up for ourselves, if we're not saying like, hey, this is me, this is what I believe in, this is what's important to me, then that's kind of a betrayal of ourselves, I feel. And again, it's not always safe to be 100% authentic, but if we can find different ways to be so as much as possible, that is my goal. That's my goal for my life. That's my goal for my clients. That's my goal for the world. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it's very important to me. Okay, so authenticity under pressure. Boom. So I don't know how much YouTube you guys consume, but I watch a lot of YouTube and I watch a lot of YouTubers. And this thing has been, this authentic self has been thrown around a lot. And, some people, there's kind of two camps. There's some people who think that they can tell when you're being authentic and they're like, I own your authenticity. And then there are other people who say, well, no matter what I do, it's always authentic because it's me doing it. And so there is that question of, well, like, aren't I always my authentic self? If I am the one who's doing the thing, is it not automatically me? And I think it's a worthwhile question, and I think it's one of those kind of philosophical questions maybe. But I think when we're talking about authenticity for our purposes, this is about honesty and layers of honesty, because yes, you are always being yourself. You can't be anyone else. It is impossible for you to be anyone else. But in my acting training, I trained for an actor as an actor for an actor as an actor for 20 years. And in my acting training, I did notice that, there's authentic human behavior, and then there's learned human behavior, and there's conditioned human behavior, and it's all you, but some of it's more you, and some of it's more linked to your primal self, to your, to your real integrous self. And some of it's much more conscious. Some of it's more pretending, some of it's more put on. As an actor, I do very strongly believe that we have a multitude of potential within us. And I don't think it's possible to ever be someone other than yourself. And I do feel that, good actors are not people who manage to disappear into someone else. They are people who manage to foster different parts of themselves, because, your personality is created of the bits of you that you pay attention to, the bits that you polish, the bits that you nurture. And so, when we're turning into someone else, we're not actually turning into someone else. We're just bringing out parts of ourselves that don't necessarily see the light very often. And that's the only way to be truthful. You can't be truthful in a lie. I don't personally believe that's possible. And so yes, you are always being yourself, but there's yourself kind of unconnected, disconnected, lying self, and then and you're authentically choosing to do that. Or there's, the deeper stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But I did want to address what authenticity is not, because there are some people who like to tell you what your authentic self is. And I think that's impossible. That's garbage. So authenticity is not performative. It is not something that I'm consciously giving out into the world. If I'm making an effort to show you who I am, that is performative, that is a performance, and that is not authentic, because too much thinking, too much self-consciousness is going on there. So whenever I'm trying to show you who I am, and even if that who I am is accurate, it's not authentic, because it's it's consciously portraying something that might be true, but because I'm consciously portraying it in a way that is like I'm trying to put it on from the outside, that's not authentic. It's not coming organically, authentically from the inside. It's being put on top, even if it is true. Authenticity is not consistent. So a lot of people, I think, expect a certain consistency from you. And this is where, especially if you are a coach or, a content creator, you will notice that people have certain expectations of you. They have expectations of consistency. And yes, your brand needs to be consistent. But if you are going to be authentically you all the time, consistency is something that's going to get in your way, because you are multitudinous, you are many, many things. And what people often experience of us is much more two-dimensional. For example, I'm going to be sharing a lot of personal stories in this, just so you know. For example, I, at kind of default, at a very base level, if I'm not stressed and bad things aren't going on in my life, I am a very joyful person. I am very bouncy. I'm very happy. I'm very giddy. And it comes very authentically and very naturally from within me. However, I also have depression and anxiety. So sometimes if, everything's going great, I am very bouncy and happy and giddy. And that is very real. And sometimes I'm really not. And that is very real as well. And so this is why authenticity is so important to me, because I've struggled my whole life with people telling me that I am being authentic or that I'm not being authentic based on my mood, based on my behavior. And that's just not been my experience. Like, I'm being true to who I am and how I feel. The truth is that I'm complicated. I'm a complex person, and I'm not always going to meet your expectations. And that is a very difficult thing to say to someone. And especially the more we come out into the public eye, the more our clients have expectations of us. That can be very difficult. It's something I had to bump up against. What I noticed, and I am very privileged in that I run my own business. I've been doing this full time for 5 years now. I get to choose who I work with, and I get to cultivate the room, and I get to, control that to a degree. So I'm very lucky in that I am able to do this. But what I noticed was there was this expectation of, this bouncy, happy person, and having anxiety and depression, coaching every single week. I wasn't able to keep that up consistently. And I felt the urge to fake it, to pretend that I was happy when I wasn't, to pretend that I was high energy when I wasn't. And that was exhausting. I would have to psych myself up for sessions, and I would do it. And afterwards I would feel betrayed. I would feel exhausted. I would feel very unhappy with myself. It really ate at my self-esteem. And so I experimented with how I could show up in a more authentic way and be okay with being a mess. So to show up to class, this was when everything was in person, to show up in class, to, facilitate and to acknowledge that I was feeling, a complete mess. And what I noticed is that there's a huge difference between focusing on something and acknowledging that it exists. Because the first time I walked into the room and I was like, oh, I'm such a mess, and I made it all about me, and it was terrible, and I had to just shut it down and pretend I was okay and, and keep going, because it didn't work at all. And I had to keep the room safe. I have to keep the space safe for everyone that I'm coaching. Their needs have to be my number one priority. But in noticing that, I realized that it's not actually about how I feel, it's about what I'm focusing on. So if I can walk in the door and say, yes, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling a mess, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm present, I'm here in the moment, and I'm here to serve you. What do you need? And that changed everything for me, because teaching went from something that was occasionally energizing and occasionally exhausting to something that was always energizing and always fulfilling and nurturing. And I would come out of those sessions, even if my life was a mess and I was, crying most of the day, I'd be able to go into those sessions, be honest about how I was feeling, and really, truly, emotionally embodied honest. And because I wasn't lying, I wasn't suppressing, but I also wasn't focusing on it. I was just saying, this is what is, but that's not why I'm here. Why I'm here is about you. And I got to replenish myself in a way that was truly authentic. And so I just want to say that consistency is not, people don't own you. They don't own their experience of you. Like, they don't own the way you need to show up. People get very entitled sometimes about how you get to show up, and I think that's wrong. I think you get to say how you show up. You need to understand the context of why you're there and what you need to focus on. But don't feel like, well, I'm always happy and bubbly, and now I'm going into class and they're going to expect someone who's happy and bubbly and I'm not feeling it. Great. Show them a different side of yourself. And as long as you are still there and you're still present, I think that's what's important. And then the third thing is serious or deep, because I also had some people tell me, this is kind of on the opposite end, that this bubbly side of myself wasn't real. And maybe they saw me faking it sometimes. Maybe it wasn't always real, because I do absolutely respond to that pressure of expectation of other people. But also, authenticity is sometimes frivolous and it's sometimes light. And we need to be able to tell the difference between hiding in nervousness and just being up to date. But it doesn't need to be, I am only ever authentically myself when I am grounded and feeling something deep. That's garbage. You are authentically a full person. So, did those three things make sense? Is everyone with me so far? Does anyone disagree with me? Type in the chat if there's anything you're like, oh, but what about this situation? Or, does anyone have any questions or disagreements so far? Still with me? Still with me? All right. So what I think authenticity is, it's honest and it's evolving. It's not going to be consistent, because you are not going to be consistently who you are. You are going to grow. You are going to change. You are going to become someone new, and that is wonderful. And so we don't want this idea to limit us. And as long as we're honest, I think that's what's important. So if we're honest in the moment, and then I came up with a formula because why not? I thought it was fun. Unselfconsciousness plus self-awareness and connection, because we can be unselfconscious without being authentic. If someone is completely unaware, they might be very disconnected from themselves. They might be very nervous or very angry or very defensive and speaking from that place in a very unselfconscious, truthful way to them. But because they're not connected to themselves and they're not self-aware, that's not really authenticity either. I mean, someone can be very unselfconsciously in, some sort of defensive mode or some sort of reaction that isn't authentically them. It's just something that they've learned behavior. And so I think it's important to put those two together. It's unselfconscious. I am not consciously presenting something to you. I might be mindful about it, but that's not quite the same thing. I mean, I'm not consciously creating an image for you, but I am conscious that I'm doing my best to be honest. So I hope that makes sense. And then the self-awareness and connection, asking yourself, is this really what's going on with me? And connecting to yourself, I think, is really important as well. So the thing that I think authenticity really requires is presence. And presence is something, oh my goodness, this has been a theme for the last 2 weeks in all the practice labs and all the private coaching sessions that I've had the last couple of weeks. We've been talking a lot about presence and what does it mean to be present and to show up and to be in the moment and to be with somebody. And for me, presence is very much a physical state. It's a way of being when kind of time stands still a little bit and only this moment exists. And it's not something that I can live with 100% of the time, because I need to plan and daydream and all those wonderful things. But it is something that in communication, I think, is extremely important, to be able to flip that switch and go, okay, now I am present. I am with this person. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. I'm not thinking about what they think of me. I am here and I am with them, and my full attention is on this moment between us. That, I think, is presence. And we need that on stage. We need that on video. We need that in conversation. We need that in facilitation. And I think that is what really promotes authenticity, is presence, because presence gets rid of the self-consciousness. You don't have space to be self-conscious and judge yourself if you're present. Presence takes up everything, takes up all of your RAM. And so I think presence is often the key. And a lot of the tips that I'm going to be sharing are going to be based on how to become present physically, emotionally, intellectually present, so that we can be with somebody. Thinking of when someone is trying to make a name for themselves, they may not feel strong to be authentic with an audience or at meetings. Absolutely. I think Authenticity is something that has to be nurtured. It has to be cultured. It has to grow with us. I think we're always going to feel like we're always going to feel less confident in the beginning, and it's about just staying as true as you can to yourself. And I think the more true you are to yourself, the faster confidence will grow. Because I know for me, my confidence in my business was so slow to grow because I was always doing what everyone else told me and not what I wasn't following myself. And so I think building building a connection with yourself and a trust with yourself is something you can do outside of business, for sure. It's something you can do in your life. And practicing it in all these small social situations, when you disagree with a friend or when you don't feel like going out, or, you know, there are so many micro interactions where we can practice authenticity so that when we come to building a business, we have those skills already started. And the faster we can build it, the faster we're going to step into our power, I think. So yes, it's difficult at the beginning. Absolutely. I think it's not a skill, but it's something that needs to be strengthened and nurtured within us. Maybe it is a skill. I don't know. Is authenticity a skill? Yes or no in the chat. Is it a skill? Is it a muscle? What is it? I don't know. It's like a way of being, I think. So muscle, we're going with muscle. Anyone else? Feel free to throw out your idea. I'm open. I'm open to ideas. So I want to talk about layers of authenticity. And if you've worked with me before, you might have heard me talk about layers of truth. There's multiple true things going on at once. There's, like even right now, at any time I am coaching ever, there's always a layer on top, the kind of most disconnected, least maybe authentic layer, but definitely very true and honest, that I'm nervous. I'm always nervous when I'm doing anything in front of people. And there's this layer of, I want you to like me. I don't want you to judge me. I want to impress you. I want you to think that what I'm doing is good. And, all those insecurities and things, they're always there. When I am coaching, that is always there. In my life, that's always there. It's just the kind of person I am. But also when I'm coaching, like if I'm doing something like this, maybe a little bit deeper, like normally I would use the deeper example, the kind of midway example of this is content that I'm very familiar with and I know it works. That's not true. In this particular training right now, this is an experiment. I don't know where this is going, but I'm very curious about it and I'm very passionate about it. And it's something I've given a lot of thought to. I obviously prepared for today, and it's something I talk a lot about with my clients. So it's not content that I'm comfortable delivering, but it's content that I'm quite familiar with kind of within myself and within conversations. And I'm very curious and very passionate about it. And so there's a curiosity and a passion there, which is more true than the nerves, for sure. And then if I go even deeper into myself, there is definitely, for me, I'm going to get emotional, a real need in my life for finding out how I can stand up for myself on a personal level, how I can be true to myself, because most of my life, not many of you know much about my personal story, but I was taught to betray myself and like my self-trust and who I was at a very young age. And it took me, there were about 2 decades of self-hatred and thinking that I was wrong and that all my weirdness and my silliness and my eccentricities and all the crazy things that I'm working on loving now, that they were bad and that they were things to be punished or to be made fun of. And I took that on. It wasn't just that like other people were telling me that, like I believed it. And so now my personal life mission is to find ways to stand up for myself and to love those weirdness and those eccentricities in me. And then of course in my business, what I want to do is I want to bring that to other people. I want to be that person that no one was for me. And I want to catch people when they're starting to adopt that mindset and be like, no, 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 wait, stop. They're wrong. You're amazing. Embrace your weird, embrace your wonderfulness. And I want to be there for people, and I want to help them and nurture them in loving who they are and loving expressing who they are. And that is so close to my soul. So that's true as well. So all of those things are true. They're layered, but they're all true. And one is very close to my soul, and one is, kind of far away from my soul. And I can focus on, and where I focus depends on how comfortable I feel, how authentic I want to be, and how vulnerable I'm comfortable being as well, because, that might not be something that I would tell everybody. But the deeper we go, the closer we go to our kind of soul and our self, the more authentic we're being. And it's not that there isn't truth in the surface layer stuff. It's still true, but it's not maybe as real. You know what I mean? Is real to us, is real to our soul. So there are layers of authenticity. There's also layers of communication. I teach this too. We have our word choice, our vocal tone, and our body language. And that's very much the area that I'm much more comfortable teaching in as a voice and speaking coach, is the actual mechanics of it, the vocal tone and the body language. And I want to talk about emotional embodiment because, we all know words. Yes, words are where we focus most of our time. And most people are being authentic in what they say. It's more about how they say it that I'm interested in, because most of us, and I think anyone who comes to work with me, by the time you've decided that I'm interesting, you're the kind of person who is authentic in your life. You say what you mean. You are honest. You are truthful. That's who you are. Those are the kind of people that I attract. Now, so that's already there. So I'm not really going to worry about that too much. Actions, I'm not talking about like big actions. I imagine that your actions are very much an integrus about who you are. But there's little body language things like if I'm not feeling confident, I might be fidgeting, that kind of thing. So there's that. And then there's emotional embodiment. And that, I think, is a key to that authenticity that we can feel, that authenticity that you can feel from someone else. You're like, oh my gosh, this person is so authentic, because it's really hard to it's hard to like pin down, but when you feel it, right? And they might be saying, their words might be all very truthful and their actions might be very much in alignment with who they are, but sometimes you can feel it and sometimes you can't. And I think the key to that is this emotional embodiment. And what I mean by emotional embodiment is I can tell the truth. I can say, for example, this is so exciting. I can say, this is so exciting. And it's true. I am excited, but you can't really feel my excitement, right? Like I know internally I am feeling excited. That is true. You are hearing the words, but you're not, and I'm smiling, the body language is kind of there, but you're not really feeling it. Whereas if I let myself really connect to my body and connect to how I'm feeling and tell you, like, I am so excited, or just so excited, this is just so exciting, then that's going to resonate with you in a slightly different way. And yes, it's body language and it's vocal tone, but it's not something that I'm cultivating. It's not body language and vocal tone that I'm consciously choreographing. It's something that I'm letting happen because I am emotionally embodying what I am saying. And we have learned from a very young age not to emotionally embody what we say because it's dangerous. And if you are interested in this, Kristin Linklater's book, Freeing the Natural Voice, the book is mostly voice exercises, but the preface, the introduction, is all about this and how we learn to edit ourselves very young, because when we are truly transparent, when we are emotionally embodied in our communication, we are so honest and our emotions are so obvious that it makes adults uncomfortable, because children don't understand the context. So whatever they're feeling it fully, and they might be, having a meltdown in the grocery store. They don't care that they're in a grocery store. They're having a meltdown. And it's not appropriate for the context of the situation. And the adult gets embarrassed. And so the child is suppressed. And we learn to separate ourselves from this emotional embodiment. We might still tell the truth. We might still feel the truth, but we don't let it show in the same way, because we've been punished for it at some point. And this is true in most cultures, unfortunately. Not in all, but in most. And, this is we spend most of our teens learning how to suppress ourselves, and then we spend the rest of our adult lives learning how to get back to where we were when we were 3 or 4 before all these well-meaning people screwed us up. Uh, so this is emotional embodiment. It's that transparency, that complete physical and emotional truth. Not just the words are true, but the feeling is true. Is everyone with me? Just give me just type like a Y in the chat. You're still with me. You haven't fallen asleep. You're still here. Are you still here? Has anyone fallen asleep? Is anyone bored yet? No sleepers yet? All right, good. So that's what emotional embodiment is. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. More than anything else is that physical and emotional part of authenticity, because I think we've got the like verbal honesty. I think we've got that down. So there are clues to when someone is being authentic, and we're not always conscious of what these are. So I thought I'd bring some of them to the foreground so that we can look for them in ourselves, but also in other people. What is it that is telling me that this person is authentic versus this person who is not? As a voice coach, the first two things are about the voice. So speaking on the breath, and I've talked about this ad nauseum with so many of you, but when we hold our breath, this is what we do when we're suppressing ourselves, when we're separating ourselves from that physical and emotional truth. So the way that we do that is we hold our breath. So when I'm not okay, when I'm sad and I'm freaking out and I'm trying not to be, I will hold my breath back, and I'll probably put on a masking smile, and I will pretend that I'm okay when I'm not, because that's what's expected of me. And I hold my breath. And that's an extreme example, but we do it all the time. We're constantly separating the breath from the voice, even if it's just a little bit. And I want you to see if you can hear this. I don't know how accurate this is going to be with my sound setup, but I want to see if you can hear the difference between subtly holding back, and because it's easy to hear when I'm holding back in an obvious way, but subtle holding back and complete transparency. So if I'm subtly holding back, I am holding my breath just a little bit. Now, it's very difficult to hear. I can really feel this because this is not where I try to live, but I'm holding my breath just a little bit. So 90% of my breath is coming out when I speak, but not all of it. And there's a little bit of holding back, and that allows me to just kind of check my words at the door. So there's some border guards at my jaw, in my throat. The editor is here just kind of watching things as they go out into the world to make sure they're correct. So that is me holding back just a little bit. If I want to be completely 100% transparent, that is not always easy to do in conversation 100%, because it requires an honesty that is, even in conversations, sometimes uncomfortable. But right now, I am letting my breath out with my voice, and I'm not holding it back at all. And I'm breathing all the way down into my belly, into the second point, which is called the pang. So I don't know if you could hear the difference between those two examples or not. If you can, just put a yes in the chat, please, because I can't see everyone's face. So just a yes. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's very, very subtle. I'm just curious, really, if you can hear it or not. You can probably feel it in yourself more easily than you can hear it in me. So the key to letting the breath and the voice out at the same time, part of that is bringing the breath and the voice together, and part of it is speaking from the pang. So this is what Kristin Linklater talks about when she talks about why we've decided to speak, like why we're urged, why we learn to speak, why we learn to communicate, is from this pang, is from a need. I am hungry, I am cold, I am uncomfortable, and so I cry as an infant, and my needs are met. And so the origin of communication comes from this pang, this need, this deep feeling in the gut. That's what the primal feelings come from, the gut. And then as we become adults and as our needs get more complicated and more organized, we start to think of the needs as coming from the brain. And so we start to speak kind of from the head more. And the voice tends to kind of come from the throat and it comes from the head because this is where I think of my needs and my thoughts originating. And so my voice has moved. When I'm a child or when I am in a primal state, my voice is coming from my guts. It's coming from the pang. It's coming from a need. But when I'm disconnected from my body and I'm kind of, just concentrating on what organizing my thoughts, this organizer thing and, what I want materially, that kind of stuff, or intellectually, my voice tends to come from higher up in my body. And I don't know if you can hear the difference in that, but that is it's a disconnected voice. It's an unconnected voice because I'm speaking kind of from the head up. And my body, instead of being an instrument of communication, my body becomes this thing that moves my head around. And so reconnecting the body and the breath and the voice, it's not just about people being able to hear your authenticity, but it's about you being able to feel it and them being able to feel it. Because if you are emotionally connected, not only on the inside, but also on the communication side, then they will be able to feel it too. And what I see with a lot of people, especially technical people who have been, spent their lives in IT or engineering or, that kind of place where it's a very intellectual space. My spouse is a coder, so I know what I'm talking about. What I see a lot in those people is that, oh, where was I going with this? Oh no, I got distracted. I was talking about the pang. What I see in them is that they're very up here and they're not connected to their body. Oh, what I was going to say is what I see and experience in these people is that they are very emotional. They are feeling their emotions. But so they might be connected on the inside, but they're not connected between the inside and the outside. And so you get these people who are very intellectual, very non-expressive necessarily on how they're feeling. And so they come across as inauthentic or they come across as disconnected. And it's not that they're disconnected from themselves. It's that the connection between the inner self and the outside world has gotten lost somewhere. And so they're feeling very deeply, but they're not showing it. They're not showing it in their face. They're not showing it in their voice. They're not showing it in their emotional expression isn't coming out. And so when we're connected to the pang, it's not enough just for me to feel it. I have to be able to feel it and express it. Does that make sense? Everyone's with me? Cool. Okay, good. So, it's the connection is a complicated thing. It's not just me connecting to myself, but it's me connecting to the outside world. Something that is another clue to authenticity is how relaxed someone is, like physically, how relaxed they are. Not that they're not being honest if they're tense, but this emotional embodiment is very difficult if we're tense. So if their muscles are relaxed and alive and responsive, so, you like throw something at them and see how quickly they catch it. If they have that, if their response timing is good, they're more likely to be authentic. And I can't believe I'm bringing this up. It just occurred to me. This was not part of the planned presentation. But if anyone watches the show Altered Carbon, there is an amazing scene in there, which is actually something quite similar to what actors do in acting training. There's a scene in season 2 where they're trying to test to see if this woman is undercover or not, like if she is who she says she is. And so they're asking her questions, quick fire questions, which she has to answer straight away. But they're also like they're shooting at her and like throwing things at her because it's a sci-fi movie. So that's what's going on. But the point is that she's has to be extremely physically present. So whatever's coming out of her mouth is truth. And that we actually do this a lot in acting training to kind of distract yourself because we tend to want to control. We tend to want to over-organize things with the brain, and that creates tension and that creates this kind of manufactured behavior. So if we completely occupy the physical self with something, like you're trying to do something very difficult, like balance a broom on your nose. And then someone asks you questions while you're trying to balance a broom on your nose, you're going to answer honestly. And things might come out that you don't necessarily want them to say. you don't necessarily want people to hear if they're trying to catch you in like, what is my surprise party about or something. You get someone to balance a broom on their nose and then ask them about your surprise party and you'll hear the truth. So that physical presence, that relaxed and alive muscles and responsiveness, the more physically present someone is, the more likely they are to be being authentic on the other levels as well. Enemies to authenticity, this is kind of just a recap. I've talked about this already. Tension. If I'm tense, I'm less likely to be authentic because I'm going to be controlling everything. Things aren't going to be coming out naturally. If my posture is collapsed, so if I'm kind of slouched like this, it's harder for me to be authentic for the same reason as the tension, in that my body isn't open and responsive and alive. If I'm overthinking things, difficult for me to be authentic because I'm like trying to choose what to say and I'm trying to organize it and I'm trying to control it. Control is the enemy of authenticity. I'm sure you agree. And expectations, other people's expectations and the pressure of their expectations, but also my own expectations of, I want to appear knowledgeable. I want people to like me. I want people to understand why this is so important so they come take my course. All those expectations that happen, these are the enemies to authenticity. Yes, this is very true in sales. So we can also, these enemies to authenticity, we can also call this being under pressure. Remember, this isn't just about being authentic. This is about being authentic under pressure. And you'll notice that it's exactly the same slide, just the title is different. So all of these things that happen to us when we're under pressure, these are the enemies of authenticity. Tension, collapsed posture, overthinking, expectations. These are what happen when we're under pressure. These tend to be our knee-jerk reactions to being under pressure. And so knowing this, knowing what creates the circumstances for authenticity, knowing what the enemies of authenticity are, I can now think, okay, so when I am under pressure, how am I bringing in tension, collapsing my posture, overthinking? What are the expectations? And how can I shift that? How can I set myself up for success? So the very physical things that we can do. There are obviously also intellectual things that we can do. I'm not going to talk about that too much because physical is more my wheelhouse. I'm not a therapist or even a life coach. So, there are a couple of them in here. So you guys know that stuff better than I do. So I want to talk about tense versus relaxed and grounded. If I'm tense, it's very hard for me to be authentic. And so the opposite of tense is relaxed and open and grounded. And so we're going to talk about some exercises that we can do to get us to a place where we are relaxed and open and grounded. Collapsed, enemy of authenticity. So how can I be open and energized? And the sternum is the key. I see so many people playing with their posture, and dominant posture and submissive posture. There's all these different things out there. But the one thing that I have noticed, the one thing that makes the biggest difference is the position of the sternum. So I can be standing up straight, but if my shoulders are a little bit forward and because my sternum is collapsed, what I might want to do is might want to push my shoulders back because it's, people tell us in the old days, stand up straight, push your shoulders back. But I can still have a collapsed sternum with my shoulders pushed back and I've cut off my breath. I can't breathe properly. I'm very tense now. Everything is going wrong. I look right, but everything is wrong. Whereas if my shoulders are coming forward because my sternum is collapsed, and instead I just lift the sternum, which does take quite a lot of concentration because most of us aren't used to using the muscles necessary to lift this part of the chest. If I just lift the sternum, like my ballet dancing teacher was always telling me to do when I was 6, never listened. Now I'm telling everyone to do it. If I would just lift my sternum, then my arms are still floppy. They can do whatever they want. I can still move. I have complete access of movement. I'm still open. I'm still relaxed. But I am also in a position where I can breathe and I can feel confident because your body posture does absolutely affect how you feel. Overthinking versus present in the body. So overthinking is the enemy. Overthinking, judging myself, all of those wonderful looping critical thoughts that we have. Obviously, those critical thoughts need to be dealt with in a more long term, but in a short term, the way that we kind of crowd out the overthinking is by being extra present in the body. If I am fully present in my body, there is no space for me to self-judge or think about things. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of vigilance to be fully present in my body, to be with my breath, to, that takes a huge amount of concentration. And that's why it works, because it takes so much concentration that you can't be thinking about other things. You can't be thinking about what your hair looks like. You can't be thinking about how you want to come across to people because you are so in your body. What do I mean to be fully present? Ha! That is like the hardest thing in the world to describe. I think to be fully present means, well, for me, I was saying earlier that it's like time stops and there is nothing other than this moment and these sensations. So presence is an almost impossible thing to describe. If anyone has a definition, please throw it in. Please throw it into the chat and save me. I find it very difficult to describe. I find it easy to see, but difficult to describe. But it is 100% occupation of your awareness in the present moment. So if you meditate or if you practice mindfulness, you might be aware of something like this. It is a complete absorption by the present moment. And I mean this moment that is happening right now. So nothing in the past, nothing in the future. If you've done any Meisner work, that's what the Meisner work is for. There is an exercise called repetition, which is about being fully absorbed in the moment. Because if I'm concentrating, I'm still on the outside looking in. It's about being absorbed by the moment, fully in it, so that nothing else exists, really. So fully present in the body is that, but also physically. So not just like your mind doesn't exist on its own. Your mind is part of your body. It's a system. And so I can be fully present with my mind and I can be fully present in my mind and my body. If I'm fully present in my mind, that comes across, what happens is it becomes unbalanced and it's too focused and your body gets left behind. And so it's important to become present in the body as well. So aware of, when I'm fully present in my body, I can feel my breath, I can feel my blood, my awareness is all the way down to my toes and my fingertips and my elbows and the tips of my ears, all at the same time, all in this moment. Oh, I hope that makes sense. A lot of people are only present in their head, and that's why I wanted to make that distinction. That's why I wrote present in the body, not just present, because a lot of people think of presence as being an intellectual exercise, and it can be. But what I've noticed, especially in teaching actors, is that when they're only present in their brain, they're only present in their intellectual self and their consciousness, they tend to like lean in and overdo things, whereas being present in my body forces me to be present in the world and not only internally. So if I'm present only in my head, it can become a very internal experience and I'm shutting other people out. Whereas if I'm present in my mind and my body, that means I'm also present in the air and in the space and I'm feeling the vibrations and I'm the other person, the person who I'm talking to, like the person I'm talking to, you wonderful people on the other side of the internet. And if I'm on stage, the person who's in the audience or the person who's opposite me on stage, they are part of that awareness if I am fully present in my mind and my body and the space. And so I think that's the distinction. What a really good, really challenging question. And then expectations versus trust. Now, this is where we start to get into the more ethereal stuff, which is even harder to explain. But expectations, what I want to happen, how I want to control the situation, how I want to come across, what other people expect from me, versus trust, which is also necessary for presence. I cannot be fully present if I don't trust myself. I will always hold something back. There will always be something in me that is planning, controlling, if I don't trust myself completely. And that is the hardest part. And I'm saying these things like, oh, it's just like a switch you can flip. No, this is a lifetime discipline. This is not something that we can just, flip and it happens. When I was doing, acting training every single day. We would go in and do exercises, kind of the equivalent of scales for actors. Like on the piano, you do scales. When you're an actor, you go into a room full of people and you try to be as authentic and present as possible every day for a couple of hours. And it's hard. And it takes a lot of discipline, and it's exhausting at the beginning, but it becomes addictive as well. And I think it's one of those things where once you get a taste of it, and once you understand it, it's something that you are naturally going to want more of because it feels so good and you feel so alive in it. So it's very difficult, and it is a discipline, and it's something that I think definitely I and probably all humans, have to continue exploring forever, because we are limitless in our potential. And so we never really reach it. But at the same time, I think it's so worth it because it's just amazing. Okay, I'm excited. All right. So deeper awareness. So if I'm not sure, am I being authentic or not? Here's a checklist for you. If you're like, well, I think I'm being authentic, but someone just told me that I'm not. Now they may be wrong. That's the first thing. They may be wrong. But if I'm not sure, I'm going to ask myself these questions. Is this true in my body? So it might be true up here, but is it true down here? Because sometimes things are true up here, but they're not true down here. I know you know what I mean. Is there something I'm avoiding? So again, maybe this is true, but it's a truth that I'm hiding in. I'm avoiding something else that is more true. Is there something else beneath this? So especially emotionally, when we're looking at secondary emotions like defensiveness or anger, or I can't think of another secondary emotion. There are others. Whenever we have a reactive emotion, it's typically to hide something else, to protect us from something else. So if I'm angry, it might be because I'm scared, or because I feel vulnerable, or because I feel hurt. So is there something else beneath this? This thing that I'm feeling, is this all the way down? Or is this true, but up here, not down there? Is there a deeper truth? These are all kind of questions saying the same thing. Is there a deeper truth? So remember, I was talking about those layers of truth. I'm nervous. I'm curious about this. And this is so freaking important to me because of my life story. Is there a deeper truth? So maybe when someone says you're being inauthentic, it's not that you're not being truthful, but maybe they see the echoes of something deeper that you're not acknowledging. Maybe it's not bad feedback. Maybe it's someone inviting you to share even more of yourself. And then the last thing, how am I hiding? Which is kind of like the second question. Is there something I'm avoiding? Am I hiding? Maybe my arms are really tense. And I felt like I was being super authentic, but if that's true, what's going on with my arms? So maybe there's something happening in the tension in my arms that is coming across as inauthenticity. And a lot of these things, they're not going to have like a well-formulated answer, but it's just going to be like, I felt like I was being authentic, but my arms are really tense. If I relax my arms, can I relax into a deeper authenticity? Maybe I have no idea what that was about, and I'll never know. But if I relax my arms, yeah, this does feel better. I do feel more authentic. I don't know why I was tensing them, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm being more authentic now. So some of these physical things, we get caught up in the reason, and we get caught up in like, but what does it mean? It doesn't always matter what it means. If it has a practical application, sometimes that's enough. Looking for clues. So for yourself, when you are like, I want to be more authentic, how do I become more authentic? How do I measure how authentic I'm being? Here are some things that you can do. The first one is spot the difference between candid recordings and official ones. So candid recordings being like if someone is recording you and you don't notice they're recording you. Like someone has walked into the room with a camera, you don't know they're there, and you're chatting to your friend. Now, whether or not you're being authentic chatting to your friend, I don't know. But, candid recordings versus official ones being, I'm going to do my webinar now, and this is me talking to you. Hi, everyone. I'm live on Facebook. So there's that difference between how I am in reality and how I am on camera or on stage. The more comfortable you are with your camera, the less difference there's going to be. And so spot the difference. Something that there's an exercise that I've developed that I have shared with some of you called the video journal. And part of that is, how do I learn to be candid on camera when it's recording? And the main answer is, you have to know that no one will ever see the recording. And so I did a video journal. You can check it out on my YouTube channel if you want. I did a video journal for 100 days. The plan was never to show anyone, and then I realized I was never going to be able to teach it if people couldn't see it. So I had to like edit out little bits that I was okay sharing. But I did. The idea is that you're committing to 10 minutes straight of video that no one will ever see, so that you can learn how to be yourself on camera. And then, and then after that, you start to, then you can watch it back. You don't ever need to share it with anybody, but you can watch it back and you can go, oh, so that's me being real and authentic on camera, and that's me being on my Facebook lives. How am I different? Oh, I've got this like weird tone in my voice. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I can do it without that weird tone. Oh, I tend to look away a lot when I'm nervous. Okay, how can I do that less? And so whatever those spot the differences are, how can I bring more of my authentic self to my public self, really? And then practice interviews with loved ones. So this is a great way, like if you're doing a presentation or something and you're rehearsing in a vacuum, a great thing to do is to rehearse that presentation with someone you love. But don't like rehearse it the way you're like, hi, I'm going to do my presentation for you. Just talk to them about it. Get them to ask you questions about it. And so you are visiting this material in an extremely candid way. Like, you know the difference between coming home from work and seeing your roommate or your spouse or your dog or whoever you live with, or your plants maybe, and saying, oh my good, your goldfish, oh my goodness, at work today I had this great idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this webinar about this, and this is what it's going to be about, and this is how I'm going to talk about these 3 things, and this is what the people are going to get out of it. You know the difference between that person and the person who says, welcome to my webinar. Today we're going to talk about these 3 things, so this is what you're going to get out of it. Like, you know the difference. So when you're in that flow of like, oh, I just had this idea, I want to tell you about it, and you're not thinking about your audience, you're not thinking about expectations, practice those interviews. The more you can speak like that, that's a muscle that you can build, that you can bring to your presentations, that you can bring to your webinars, that you can bring to your YouTube channel. And examine, while you're doing that, examine your expectations. When you're like, well, yeah, Danielle, you say that, but there's no way that I could speak the way that I do to my spouse when I'm excited about an idea. There's no way I could do that online. Why not? And I want you to really answer that. Like, really think about the why not. And hey, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying really examine those expectations. Is it because you swear a lot when you're talking to your spouse? Okay, maybe take the swear words out, but can everything else stay? Is it because, well, yeah, but when I'm talking about an idea with someone like that, I'm so unselfconscious and I say and ah all the time, and I don't want to appear unprofessional. I would challenge that. I would say that probably you being authentic and passionate and excited and wonderful is still professional. I would, yeah. So we have these ways of controlling ourselves and stopping ourselves from being authentic that are not real. This is professional is not a thing. Professional is a way you dress. Professional is a dress code. Professional is, you know, yeah, okay, maybe the language a little bit, but it's not a mood. It's not a state of being. It's a thing you do. Like, you are professional if you have the certification. It's not a real thing. And we try so hard to make ourselves feel this way. So I'm going to stop. I'm soapboxing a little bit. So the other thing is, if we're looking to ease ourselves into something, if you are very comfortable being authentic in your personal life, but you want to start moving it online, live is always easier. So if I am talking to a friend, that is easier than doing a Facebook Live. If I'm doing a Facebook Live or a Zoom call, that is easier than me recording in my basement. So it's easier to be authentic when you're live, when you're with someone, when you can be exchanging energy. And the reason for that is because presence, that was very loud. I don't know if you heard that, but that was the other room making a noise. Presence is what makes it easier to be present and authentic, right? And so if we're listening, if we're with somebody, if we're exchanging energy, then that is allowing us to be more authentic. If I am putting my attention instead of on myself and judging myself and thinking about me, if I can put that attention on someone else, then I can be present and authentic with them, and I don't have to worry about me. And it's hard to do that when someone else isn't there. So if you have a real person in front of you, you can put your attention on them. This is amazing for if you are waiting for your turn to speak in the boardroom or at a networking event. It's going to be your turn. You know it's coming, and you're starting to get nervous, and you're starting to feel yourself tense up and judge yourself and put on that persona that you don't want to put on. Occupy yourself with being fully present in listening to whoever is talking, and occupy yourself with being fully present in engaging with them. And all of the self-judgment and all that stuff will get pushed out by the presence because there's no space for it. And you will be there in your presence with them, and that will get you back into your authentic self. Present listening is so important. And what I mean by present listening is, we defined presence earlier, so I'm not going to do that again. So being fully present in the moment, connected to yourself, but with your focus and your attention entirely on the person you are listening to, and ideally connected to your body. So when I say connected to yourself, you are breathing. You're breathing all the way down into your belly, into the pang. You can feel your body. So you are aware and alive in your body, but your awareness and your focus is on the other person. And so there is this connection between you. It's not an internal, isolating presence, and it's not unbalanced, unconnected. There's an internal and an external awareness, which is, again, way easier said than done. So some of the tricks that we can do, focus entirely on the other person is one of the things. Backstage, if you're getting ready to speak and you're like, oh, I'm standing backstage and it's my turn and I'm getting really nervous and I can feel all of my energy coming up into my shoulders and running away with me. And this is not who I want to be. Turn yourself on early. So when I say turn yourself on, I mean switch yourself on. Let yourself become fully present. Lift your sternum. Go into that kind of extra present performance mode earlier. So the sooner you do that, the less you are in judging yourself pre-performance mode. You want to get into that performance mode. So turn yourself on early. Start breathing deeper. If you've worked with me at all, you really want to access those floating ribs, the rib reserve breath, for the strength and the support and the groundedness of your breath and your voice. You're going to open up your sternum. You're going to stand up straight. You're going to become alive. Turn that on early. And then backstage, you can also do a pep talk with yourself. So if you're starting to feel yourself become inauthentic, you're getting caught up in expectations, or I want to be consistent, I want to be this person, I don't want to look stupid, I want them to think that I know what I'm saying. If all that stuff's going on, give yourself a pep talk. Include your body in the pep talk. So don't give yourself a pep talk in your head and isolate yourself. Stay connected to the body. Keep breathing. Breathe all the way down into your belly. Involve your emotions in the pep talk. And so the pep talk isn't necessarily, you got this, you can do this, you're amazing. Maybe the pep talk is something deeper, something connected to yourself. Remember, we're talking about those different layers. So maybe the pep talk is, this is important to me because of my life purpose, and connect to yourself to what that is. That you're like, the closer the reason is to yourself and your life purpose and who you are, the better. Now, life purpose is a whole other thing, but you know what's important to you. You know what your values are. You know why you do things. And so connect to that backstage. Instead of thinking about what other people are going to think of you, connect to why this is important. Why is it important that I share this message right now? Yes, I want to make sales, but why did I choose to do this business in the first place? Yes, I want to, convince them that this idea is extremely important if we're going to save the world. But why is saving the world important? And why is this idea so good? Connect to that emotionally with your body and with your breath. Have I lost anybody? Are you still with me? Anyone asleep? We're almost at the end of me talking. Thank goodness. Yes, exactly. Start with the why. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Just finished your nap. That's good. I love it. I love it. All right. So that's in person, on stage. What if I am recording video all alone in my basement in the middle of the night? How do I be authentic then? Like, talk about pressure. Do you, does anyone else just put a yes in the chat? Anyone else feel pressure when they press that record button? Like you're fine, you're setting up, everything's good, and as soon as you press record, it's like a different universe. It's loud noise and I don't know, like fighter jets overhead. Yeah, this okay, tension. Yeah, there's an expectation something happens. So you know what your triggers are. And if you don't, find out what your triggers are for that pressure, for that expectation, for that switch in yourself from authentic to not authentic. You got to figure out what those triggers are. What makes that happen? What are the things that make you kind of want to move away from your authentic self? For a lot of people, it's pressing record or standing in front of the camera or, okay, I'm going to start now. And so all of those things create pressure or tension or this kind of like, I got to get it right feeling. So I have developed a couple of things that I do to get rid of that because I can't be doing with that. I don't like that at all. So one of the things that I do is I claim my space. I don't have the space to do it now, thank goodness. But I will often do like a happy dance in my space before I'm filming. So I have a whole routine when I film because I can't leave my studio set up. So I have to set up my studio every time. So every time I set up my studio, I put on some loud music that makes me happy and I dance around usually in my underwear because I don't want to get dressed yet because I don't want to get hot and sweaty. Um, and I dance around setting up all the lights and all that kind of stuff with my music. And for me, that's part of claiming my space. Like emotionally, I am claiming the space on a very kind of primal level. I'm walking it, I'm walking around it, and I am filling it with my joy, with myself, with the music that I like, with me dancing. I have a little dance party while I'm setting up. And so for me, that's a big part of claiming my space. You don't need to do it the way I do it, but definitely if you have emotional connections to your space the way I do. Not everyone does, but I'm a very emotionally spatial person. So some people will like smudge with sage, some people will just walk, up and down. I sing. For me, singing is a way that I claim my space because I can feel the vibrations of my voice in the room. Walk up and down, like just take ownership of the space. You watch animals taking ownership of their space. They'll like walk up and down with their energy and they will fill the space with their energy. That is a very important thing to do because you need to feel like this is your space. This is your stage. This is where you belong. If you feel unsafe in your filming area on your stage, you're never going to feel like you are safe enough to be authentic. And so you have to make it yours first. Step one, make the space yours. Step two, remove the pressure. Step two, remove the pressure by pressing record early. So that's something else I do. I film with a camera. So I have an SD card that has a lot of space. If you're filming on a phone, it's a little bit harder because they run out of space very quickly. But if you can like upload to the cloud during breaks or whatever, I press record as soon as I'm dressed. I don't rehearse beforehand. I use that time very specifically to get used to the fact that it's recording. So everything's set up, I get dressed, I press record. Sometimes I press record before I've done my makeup even. I'll press record and I will start to talk through things. So now I start my rehearsal process. So I don't even like that pressure of pressing record happens way before I'm ready to start filming because I know that then I'm always going to need 5 or 10 minutes to get used to the fact that I just press record. So I do it early. I do it early and then I sing and I tell jokes and I wobble and I dance and I talk through what I'm going to do. And so I've forgotten that feeling of pressing record by the time it comes to film. Something else to do to remove the pressure is the seamless preamble. Now, I've recommended this to a couple of people and then I've noticed that sometimes if it's not seamless, it doesn't work. So if you separate your preamble from your content, so say uh, I'm doing a video on projection and how to be loud in the space. in a way that is sustainable and not going to hurt your voice. So if I'm doing that and I do a preamble like, oh, this is what I'm going to talk about and this is how I'm feeling, and oh, isn't this funny? Okay, now I'm ready to go. Projection is very important. That's not a seamless preamble. I took all this time to organize myself, and I still had that moment of it's real now. So the seamless preamble needs to be something that you can cut out without any sort of change in your energy. So the seamless preamble is more about I'll often address who I'm talking to. So this is point number 4, talk to a real person. You have to know who you're talking to, otherwise it's going to feel, if you don't know who you're talking to, it's going to come across as vague and inauthentic. The more you can simulate that experience of a real person being there, the more authentic it's going to be. So you have to know who your audience is. Even if you're filming alone in your basement, you need to know who is on the other side of the camera, who will be on the other side of the camera. Even if you don't actually know, you need to have an intention of who that's going to be. And then I will talk to them. So I might press record, I've done my rehearsal, I've done my singing, whatever. And then I'll say, okay, so I have to choose a name of someone who isn't on here. So I don't want to pull anyone out. Okay, Jane, today I want to talk about projection and how important projection is, because Jane, I know that you have a soft voice, and if you spoke for 3 hours, you would lose your voice because you don't have the breath support that you need to speak loudly in a way that is safe for you. And so what I want to do today is I want to talk about projection. And so I'm going to cut out that bit with Jane, because I'm obviously not actually going to talk to Jane in my video. But at some point, I'm going to move into the content of the video, and it's not a conscious decision, really. So I have the preamble, and then I move into the content. And what that does is it allows me to stay real and authentic in my energy. It also reminds me of who I'm talking to, which is so important. If you have anyone who has ever worked with you in marketing or content marketing, they will get on and on and on at you about your customer avatar, or your client market, or what. So important that you know who you're talking to. And so that preamble can be really useful. Something else that can remind you to do your best to feel like you're talking to a real person, and I know that technically you're not, but you are. They're just not in the room with you. You are talking to a real person. The purpose of this video is that it is going to be shown to a real person. They're just not here right now. So it's not untrue. Something else you can do is you can put a picture of them next to your lens or something to help you remember. There's lots of little tricks like that, but they're not really about authenticity. So we're not talking about them now. And then the other thing is frequent resets. So every time I stop, I usually don't stop recording. For me, I press record and I leave it recording until I'm done, until I take a break. But every time I stop speaking and do another take, I will do a reset. So for me, depending on the content and the frame, sometimes a reset can be quite physical, because if I have a large frame, I'm not too worried about my mark. Then I might do a dance, sing a song, have some water, that kind of thing. If I have to be more precise about my frame, I might just wobble. Wobbling is really good for a reset because it gets you way back in your body again. Because remember, the things that nervousness and pressure does to us is it makes us more tense. It gets us out of our body and into our brain. So a wobble will get me into my body, out of my brain, into my body, and relaxed again. So dancing, singing, wobbling, telling jokes, making faces. I have a lot of footage of me sticking out my tongue because it just opens up my face. And it helps me relax the muscles in my face. So I have a lot of video of me doing that in between takes. Whatever you can do to reset, and ideally reset to a place where you feel you're being authentic. So for me, I think I've mentioned singing is a huge tool for me. Singing really works for me. So in between every take, I will sing a song that I feel really resonates with my soul, really resonates with who I am. It doesn't matter if you can sing or not. That's not the point. The point is that you're connecting with who you are and who's important to you. So, whatever you need to do, you need to know what your triggers are. The trick is to keep breathing, which is a song by Garbage. The trick is to keep breathing. Don't just breathe once. and then forget. That is going to let you vacate your body and go out into the ether and disconnect yourself. You have to continue to breathe. The key to all of these things, to present listening, is to breathing in through my mouth and into my belly so that I am present in my body while I am completely absorbed by the person I'm listening to. The key to giving myself a pep talk backstage is to continue to breathe down into my belly and into my floating ribs for the breath support, but also for the emotional connection. The key to staying grounded on camera and not having my voice go up an octave is to continue to breathe in my body. The trick is to keep breathing. Don't think breathing deeply a couple of times at the beginning is enough. It's not. You have to continue to breathe. All right, that is enough of me talking. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. It was lovely to see you all.
Thank
See you
you.
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.